And welcome back to another Fuel Your Freaky podcast. Um, hey,
Hey,
what's going on, man?
not much,
I know how much you love the intros. I know how much you love the small talk. That's why I keep asking you about it.
Yeah, it's always like, what's going on? What am I gonna say? Like my personal life.
So I didn't intend on talking about this, to be honest with you, but I actually saw another Bobby Atloff podcast just a little bit, and man, it's just the same of that. It's that same thing going on. It's such a ripoff of the the two ferns,
The two ferns
the two
and
ferns,
between two ferns.
between two
So
ferns.
Zach Galifianakis
Galifianakis.
and Funny Marco.
Yeah.
He's like a comedian who has.
Well, I haven't actually seen any of his stuff, but I'll take your word for it.
She tries too hard on that.
Yeah, I saw the video with that guy. He's very funny. He's on the new Sex and the City show.
Oh,
What's his name? Bobby Lee.
Bobby Lee.
Bobby Lee. He's
Yeah.
hilarious. He really is. Yeah, he used to be on Mad TV.
He has a really good podcast. Actually, it's very they don't hold back. They really like make fun of everyone.
And I'm actually surprised because I don't really want to get into this too much, but it feels like the Sex and the City reboot is it's not even a reboot, it's a sequel. And just like that, it's a very, 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 very politically correct show. They're like walking on eggshells every 2 seconds, afraid to insult somebody. So I'm shocked that somebody like Bobby Lee works there, gets away with working there, and then has like a very vulgar podcast where he just says anything he wants.
Yeah, that's actually a funny observation considering like he literally says anything he wants on that podcast, and he works. He's an actor on the show. Like it's very ironic, but yeah, you're right. It's very that show sucks compared to the original one.
All right, I'm gonna play a clip from the Bobby Atloff podcast that I saw with Bobby Lee. This part, I don't know why, it just caught me off guard. You know, when you're addicted to scrolling, I stumbled upon that video. It caught me off guard. I don't know why. I just thought it was hilarious.
Are you married?
No, why?
Just asking. It was a question.
I'm an old Korean fat man. It's hard.
Have you dated anyone?
In my life?
Yeah.
In my life. Yes,
Yeah.
I've dated girls in my life.
Talk about being politically incorrect, but I don't know. I know it's like not that funny, but I thought it was hilarious, and I don't understand.
Wait. You thought it was not funny, but hilarious?
I know it seems like it's like I feel like I oversold the clip, to be honest with you. But I don't know. Like to me, it just caught me off guard because she's like, "Are you married?" He's like, "No." Like, why? And then she's like, "Have you ever gone out with anyone?" He's like, "In my life?" Yes. I don't know. You know what it is? It's not. I didn't enjoy Bobby Atloff and her questions. I think I enjoyed Bobby Lee more.
Oh, her name's Bobby also, right?
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Speaking of scrolling, I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw a very sad post. Very, very sad. A 12-year-old girl suffered a lung collapse because of vaping. Can you believe
God,
that?
12 years old?
12.
Well, she's a little too young to vape in the first place.
Oh, come on, man. Of course, but I remember when I was when I was a kid growing up, my elementary school had 6th grade. You know, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I think they changed it because a lot of junior high schools have 6th grade. Elementary school usually ends at 5th. So I was in elementary school till 6th grade, and then 7th I went to junior high school. And I remember it was like a night and day. You go to junior high school, everybody's like wearing like leather jackets, piercings, tattoos, and smoking cigarettes. It's like, what? Like, did you guys all like agree or something over the summer to change your image? But I think it's just people coming from other school districts. But either way, everybody was smoking cigarettes. Everybody there was like 12, 13 years old smoking cigarettes. Okay. So I'm not surprised that 12-year-olds are
That's
vaping.
true. Yeah.
All right. But vaping is like, I don't know. Some say it's worse than cigarettes. I used to enjoy it, the casual cigarette. Like, okay, in junior high school,
With
I
the drink
smoked.
or
What happened?
a cigarette with the drink?
So when I was, in junior high school, I would sneak some cigarettes. I would smoke cigarettes actually socially. I was never addicted, thank God. Like I'm blessed that I have addiction issues with like bad food and playing chess online that I quit. I have certain addictive, habits, but thank God cigarettes wasn't one of them. And yeah, I feel like, in college, socially, and then most of the time, like you go to a nightclub, it's like, oh, let's go outside and get a cigarette, or let's go to the cigarette part of the nightclub, and
Yeah.
now I don't smoke it at all, and I used to smoke hookah. That was like my hobby, smoke hookah. And I remember I'm smoking hookah, and it's like cool because you're hanging out, and it's something to do, and it kind of gives you an excuse to hang out a really long time at the cafe. And then I see the sign. It says this is like 80 times worse than smoking cigarettes. I'm like, oh man. And a few times after smoking hookah, I felt like my throat was off. I was like, that's it. Oh, and I remember I overdid it once with the hookah. I smoked so much of it. I had severe, severe headache. And I read about it online that it's common. So I'm like, I am done.
Were you inhaling it? Because that's what.
I'm ashamed to say that I did when I was in my early 20s because
Yeah.
I didn't know. As an adult, I didn't inhale anymore.
Well, I was in high school once, and I was smoking a cigar with a friend, and I was inhaling it. I didn't know, and yeah, I felt like crap. It was terrible.
Ooh, you smoked a cigar, Mom, Dad. You saw it. You saw it. He confessed that he smoked the cigar in high school.
Thanks.
All right.
But yeah, we didn't have my high school. It was elementary school,
Well,
middle
what
school,
kind of
and high
cigar?
school.
What kind of cigar did you inhale? Was it like the Black and Mild?
No, it was like a real cigar.
Damn, I used to inhale the Black and Mild cigars too. It's not good. You're not supposed to
You're not
do
supposed
that.
to inhale them at all.
No.
But yeah, hookah I hate because, first of all, yeah, it looks like you're at a coffee shop and you just never finish. It just like they keep refilling it and you could be there forever. And then with what was I gonna say? Yeah, I'm just not a fan. It's like switching the little things.
Well, here's what.
Cigarette once in a while after a drink, like once in a blue moon.
Even now,
Nah, I can't even remember the last time. But one time I smoked a lot of cigarettes, I also felt like crap, and that was like the last time.
the last time I smoked a cigarette was because I was kind of peer pressured into it, and I was stressed out. So I'm like, all right, but it didn't even really help me with the stress. Personally, I didn't feel like it did, and it made me feel sick, if anything. So I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore.
I think it gives more anxiety.
Yeah, I know.
Well, what about weed? Do you think
Sense.
weed is an addiction?
You know what? I think anything. So there are people that want to defend smoking weed. They say, "Oh, you can't get addicted to weed. You can't overdose on weed." I don't know. The addicting part is definitely can happen. You could get addicted to anything, okay? So don't give me that it's not addicting. Because people are chasing that high.
Literally.
As far as the overdose, I think I don't know. People say, "Oh, it's impossible." I mean,
Well,
I
if
think
you have
there
a lot
is-
of weed brownies.
I think that you can overdose on anything as well. Like even eating bad food. Like, can you imagine eating too much chocolate cake? Right? That's an overdose, and you'll feel sick and you'll throw up. So I think I can assume that there is perhaps such a thing as overdoing it by smoking weed, but I'm not an expert. I don't know. What do you think? Can you overdose on weed?
Yeah, to the point where you just feel sick, but obviously I don't think it'll kill you. but I think it is an addiction. I think people are addicted to
They're just in denial
the
about it.
act of doing it, and like it's just part of their daily life. So it's not. It could lead to other drugs, but it's not like as severe as like the other type of drugs that people are really addicted to and they need like help getting out of.
Yeah,
But I
but
know somebody recently that I met, and she was saying that she's trying to stop smoking weed because she gets paranoid and anxious, and that's why she also stopped drinking. So like I guess weed makes people chill, but also could increase anxiety and all those other things that I think a lot of people don't even realize.
yeah, I think the people that say that and they're heavy pot smokers, I think they're just in denial. They don't want us to rain or anybody to rain on their parade. They don't want to come to terms that, perhaps it's not so good for you. And what I think the problem with weed is that it just makes you lazy and you feel like you don't want to do anything. That's just my opinion.
Some people could do stuff, but yeah, I can't do anything.
Yeah. So I was scrolling and I saw something else where Cameron Diaz, one of my favorite actresses in comedy, she said something along the lines of she thinks it's healthy for a married couple to sleep in separate bedrooms. What do you think about that? Would you do that?
Separate bedrooms? Probably
Perhaps you're not the right person to ask the question because you're not married yet.
Yeah. No, but I was just thinking like this thought just came to my head because I know you told me about this before, right? But I'm thinking like, did someone interview Cameron Diaz out of nowhere? 'Cause I haven't heard about her. I haven't heard about her for a long time.
So she was, so she was on a podcast apparently, and they were just talking about random things, and that was one of the things she said. Now, the reason I brought it up is not because I'm so concerned. Oh my God, what Cameron Diaz thinks. I just thought it was a very interesting topic because I've heard it before. One of the things I used to watch the show, you too, I think, How I Met Your Mother. And there was an episode where Lily and Marshall, they were like the beloved couple of the series. They were like that example for everybody else.
Right.
And they felt more comfortable at one point, I guess maybe because one of them got sick or something, or they broke a leg. I don't remember, sleeping on separate beds, and they considered actually doing it long term. But then they realized that, they're going to little by little lose that connection. And I agree 100%. Like I was engaged at one point. I slept on the same bed, with my fiance at the time. I never felt like, oh, I need my own bed. There was plenty of room for both of us. I never felt like I need space. But, I think that I understand some people just feel like claustrophobic and they just want, their own space. I get it. And maybe they can work something out where maybe they could do that once a week. Once a week, just as a dopamine. But you see, I don't want to get look, I'm not going to go off I don't want to get off course here and talk about religion, but I'm going to say something. Is that what you were going to say?
Well, yeah, because that's what some people do. But my question is, separate bed in one bedroom or separate bedrooms as well?
So I think what Cameron Diaz meant was she thought it was just a good idea to most of the time sleep in separate bedrooms, perhaps even in separate homes, and then have like a bedroom where you share, where the couple gets intimate, right? So it's like, oh, we're gonna get intimate, we're gonna share this bedroom. But
based on your income level, I don't know if most people could do that.
But it has nothing to do with that. Like, you could be a multi-billionaire. I just think, me personally, I think it's not good for the marriage. It's not good for the connection. I get it. The honeymoon phase eventually goes away, but, and perhaps the couples are not going to be sleeping with one another all the time, but, it's still a bond. I can't explain it. Like, intimacy is not just about sex. It's about, just the connection with the person being next to you. So what
No, what were we gonna say about the religious
about the
part?
religious thing? So it's interesting because I just was like, oh well, maybe they can just sleep in separate bedrooms once a week. I just threw that out there, and once I said dopamine reset or dopamine detox, boom, it hit me hard, and I'm like, oh my god, I just remembered what religious people do in the Orthodox Jewish community is that they have a thing where when a woman uh, gets her period, the husband and the wife, they don't sleep in the same room. They don't even touch each other. They still live in the same house. They still interact. Hi, how are you? Whatever. But they don't touch each other. They are not romantic with there's no intimacy, and they sleep in separate bedrooms. And they do that for the time of her period and for like a week, another week after her period ends. So it could be anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks, right? And I remember there was a religious kid who was like 20 or 21. And I was like, hey, we just kind of got into that conversation. And I asked him about that because he was married. And I'm like, oh, so we just got into that discussion, that rule. And he's like, man, I miss my wife so much. I can't wait to hold her in my arms. So I'm thinking there's something to that, perhaps. I don't know.
So you're saying that they sleep in different beds?
Yeah,
in
separate
different rooms?
bedrooms even. Yeah.
Separate bedrooms. Yeah, I could see how that works, and I think because you don't have something that you kind of expect, both of you guys expect to have often, so it builds up that desire to want it more, and I think that. I think that's a great way for even non-religious couples to practice this, to see if it could even help their marriage or their level of intercourse. So something definitely to look into for sure.
And it's all about dopamine detoxing, right? That's why, again, Orthodox Jews, they do the Shabbat once a week, right?
Yeah.
So everything that they do, phone, TV, whatever, they work, they don't do any of that. And they just take a day off. And what's interesting about that is I saw a random YouTube video of this foreign kid, and he's like, he had this funny accent. He's like, yes, you should, do this and do that, And basically he was talking about how you should pick a random day of the week, any day you want, and don't play video games, don't watch TV, just take a day off. He was preaching all about dopamine detoxing, and I was like, wow, that's so interesting because that's what Shabbat is.
That's true.
So interesting. So I think it's very healthy. Look, I'm not trying to say, a lot of girls, when you have this conversation with them, when you're in a relationship and that comes up, it's not like we just kind of talk about that. And for some reason, they're just like, no, I couldn't do that. I have to be with my man all the time. I have to be, I have to sleep with, not, in the same bed with my man all the time. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do the dopamine 2-week detox.
Well, I get that because it's so uncommon in today's society. And also, if you're talking about because religious people do it, people get scared when you talk about religion, no matter what religion it is, So
Yeah.
they feel like you're going to try to make them become more religious, if that is the part of the conversation, or it's more like, oh, because society, how often do you hear this happening? So of course people freak out when they hear something that's not the norm.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely true because one of the challenges I found in dating personally was I was either way too religious, even though I'm not, for some women, and then for others, I'm like not religious enough. It's kind of like being in limbo, and that's
Like practicing, you mean? Like
practicing. I remember when I was moving in with somebody, and she's Jewish too, but she was not really practicing anything. And I put up the mezuzahs. She was like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" I was like, "Whoa, what? You've been to places where there's mezuzahs. Did you melt? Like, what's the big deal?" But you're right. People freak out with religion. It doesn't matter which religion; they just kind of freak out.
Yeah, I don't know why. especially if I think it's just the lack of I think a lack of understanding for certain things, because like that, putting up the mezuzah, which for people who don't know, there's like a prayer inside like a little scroll with a prayer inside a little plastic covering that goes on top of like the door inside the frame or outside the frame. And all it says is a prayer that basically God is everywhere, pretty much. And like that's, to me, that's so common. It's such it's just part of the it's part of the religion, but it's also like, well, what's the other word you'd say? Like tradition?
Yeah, I would say it's tradition, culture, kind of.
It's like a common basic rule, if you will, that you don't even have to be a practicing Jew to do that. And yeah, so when you introduce one little thing, people feel like, oh, that's it. Their whole life has to change, and people hate when they have to be faced with restrictions.
Well, yeah, and I get it though, because they think like, oh, today it's this, tomorrow it's gonna be that, and then one day, ta-da, you surprise them and you do a complete 180. But I think that's really uncommon, and I think that first of all, of course, it wouldn't be fair to do that to somebody, right? But like, look, if a man wants to become really religious and he has the plans to do so, he's not gonna waste his time dating secular people or traditional people. They're gonna go for the full blown religious people, and if anything, it's easier to date when you're religious. They go out for like 3 months and then they make that decision. We're either getting married or we're not getting married.
Yeah, it is a lot easier, actually.
It's a lot easier, and they actually choose their mate without any sexual interference. There's no sex, there's no touching, there's no kissing. You're getting to know the person for who they are, and you're like, wow, you're fully focused on the person. And I know what it feels like I'm promoting a religion here. I'm not. Disclaimer: we're not. You're not even allowed to convert. Force people to convert to another religion. You're not allowed to promote, especially with Judaism. You're not supposed to like sell it on people. But this is just a discussion, and just so we're clear here. But the point I was trying to make is that, yeah, and I actually know a few people that they were considering becoming religious, and then they made the conscious choice of, you know what, I'm not going to even date until I get further in my studies. And then when they actually, after the 6 months to a year, whatever, they felt comfortable and religious, then they decided that they were ready for dating, and then they started dating for the religious person. So I don't think people have anything to worry about where they'll be deceived. You'll go out with them, and then one day, oh, I'm religious, now you have to be religious too. Most likely it's going to end up in divorce anyway.
Yeah, you don't want to ever force your partner to do something that's very different than their current lifestyle. They could buy into it, if you, and not only for religious things, like anything else, obviously in a relationship, there has to be sacrifice and compromise, which is like, I think, the key thing. But when I think people are used to just doing things their way, especially if they're maybe living in a big city or living, alone for a while. You get used to it. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
So it's hard to definitely get into those kind of things, especially when you're talking about religion. Like I definitely understand.
Yeah. And speaking of long-term relationships and marriage, apparently,
That's a great segue.
there's a statistic that shows couples on average that are together when they're in love after being a year together. Hold on, I wrote this down. Yeah. 1 year after love, they gain 17 pounds. Another study showed this is a little bit better, that within 5 years, a woman can gain 24 pounds and a man can gain 20 pounds. Or 30 pounds, I should say, sorry, after being 5 years together. So what
Because
is
they have
it?
a good marriage.
But okay, what does that mean though? They have a good marriage. What does that mean?
They eat well.
They eat well.
There-
Okay.
There's two. Yeah, fine. There's two things. Either A, they eat really well and they know they love to they love to indulge, or B, they don't really find interest in one another and they kind of let themselves go.
No, I don't think it's about they don't find interest with one another. In fact, if they didn't find interest with one another, I think they would be in shape even more because they would low key try to find somebody else while they're with the person. You know?
Well, no, not
No,
everyone.
because what happens is when a couple isn't happy and somebody decides to have an affair or to, eventually leave the person for another person, that's how, that's a huge indicator actually of somebody having an affair, right? I'm not saying that just because a spouse decides to work out one day, they're having an affair. I'm just saying that usually when somebody is having an affair, one of the signs is them working out because now they want to look good. They want to hit the single market, even though they're not single.
I think people who are just like settled in with their marriage and it's like whatever, it's just like they day by day, they're going with the flow and they start to put on a few pounds. I think that's because of that, because they're just going with the flow. Yeah, they might be happy. It might be like whatever to them. Maybe there's a more spark. Doesn't mean they're necessarily looking to like, oh, I'm gonna go and look for somebody else now. They might not be looking to leave the marriage, but that's probably another prime indicator of why they're putting on weight, because they just kind of don't care anymore.
Well,
They don't have to impress. They don't care about impressing their spouse.
it's yeah. So I think what happens is it's not that they don't care anymore. It's because they're in love and they feel comfortable with one another. And one of the activities that people do together when they're comfortable is eat. Okay? What's that sound?
The rain.
You heard the banging?
Well, I think I might have made a sound with my chair.
Oh. Anyway, so I what I was saying is, yeah, when a couple is in love, they get very comfortable with one another. One of the activities that they like to do together is eat.
Mhm.
All right, so they're not paying attention because they already feel like they have one another, and they're not looking for anybody currently. So they're now enjoying life, and because they're kind of falling asleep at the wheel, they gain weight.
Yeah.
And I think there is a rude awakening with a lot of couples eventually, and they tend to lose the weight and get in shape. And again, that doesn't mean that they're having an affair. I'm just saying.
Well, was this stats based in America?
What, for the gaining of the weight?
Yeah.
You know what?
So America's not the healthiest country either.
I think in America, yeah. I'm not sure, to be honest, but if I can take a guess, I would say America.
Well, America's not the healthiest country.
Right.
So
Speaking of what you mentioned, well, what we spoke about when having an affair, one thing that people tend to do, especially in major cities, is they have friends with benefits for whatever reason. They like the person, or they were in a relationship with this person, but the person's unstable to be in a relationship, and they think by continuously sleeping with them, it's like unfinished business. When people break up, they don't actually break up. The real breakup takes like another 6 months to a year, depending on the people. They prolong it, and is it like from a serious relationship? I'm not talking about a fling, 2-month fling. I'm talking about a serious relationship, and it's hard to let go of the person, so they continue seeing each other. They continue sleeping with one another, and they decide, you know what, for now, or if they have a really good friend, they decide, you know what, I have needs. I need to satisfy these needs, and in the meantime, I'm going to sleep with this person. There was 2 movies based on that, and they both started and ended the same way. Where
which movies?
One was literally called Friends with Benefits, and the other one was No Strings Attached. All right, and I think what the premise was is they both like had a bad breakup, and they're friends, so they said, "Hey, let's just sleep together and satisfy our needs," and yada yada yada. They end up falling in love and end up being together. Shocker, right? But I think that's counterproductive, though. That's counterproductive because they're like, you know what? I'm going to date somebody, And in the meantime, I'm going to have somebody to satisfy my needs. But you know what? That's counterproductive because you're never truly open in your heart in meeting somebody new. Because you're going to go out there, you're going to date, but they're never going to be good enough. You're always going to be thinking about the person you're sleeping with. Okay? And it's kind of like, you know, when they say if you want to be successful at something, you have to just give up almost everything and just focus on that one thing if you really want to be successful at it. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed because you're doing too much and you're not giving something your attention and your full dedication. I think the same thing goes for relationships. So it's like an addiction also, right? It's an addiction. I mentioned earlier that I had an addiction with chess. Like I'd stay up till like 3 a.m. playing chess, and I would have like that obsession of winning and getting my, higher score. And I felt like eventually I was like, you know what? This is ruining my life. Like a game like chess is ruining my life. I'm not sleeping much. I get pissed off. This is an addiction. And I decided I'm going to delete the app. And there were times where I would download it again, delete it again, download it again. But I'm like clean for like, I think 6 months clean.
Congratulations.
And thanks. And I just, I love the game of chess. When I see it like on a video, somebody's playing it, it kind of like, I get the urge to play it again. But I remember what it does to me in a negative way. So I decided I'm done. And I think what people need to do if they're serious, because look, I'm sure people have an agenda. They're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to sleep with this person. But I think subconsciously they're hoping deep down that eventually they'll end up together. And I know this is fiction, but I'm going to use it as an example, Sex in the City with Carrie and Mr. Big, for those of you who watched. All right? And it worked out perfectly for her, and they ended up together after 6 seasons. But if I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would bet that probably wouldn't happen in real life, most likely, with their dynamic. With other people, maybe, but definitely not with Carrie and Mr. Big. It just didn't seem likely that they'd end up together. I don't know. Either way, I think if a person is serious about moving on, it's very hard to do, and there are strong-minded, will-minded people. You just gotta dump that person. It's hard. You're used to them. You love the connection you have with them, but you just have to rip it off like a Band-Aid and move on. Of course, give yourself time to heal and then move on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I have to agree because you're emotionally still invested in the person you're sleeping with, and even if you're dating somebody nice that you like, and you could see yourself being with them and possibly sleep with them in the future, you're still involved with somebody else and doing an activity that's supposed to be meaningful. And in many ways, I think it is meaningful because you had a past relationship with them. You laughed, with them and stuff, and you went through ups and downs, I'm sure. So yeah, it's hard because that physicalness. It's kind of like we want our cake and eat it too, and it's just like not eating sweets if you're trying to keep your weight down. It's just so easy to eat a piece of cake instead of going to exercise, because you have to put in that effort and work, and especially when they're there, like calling you and whatever, and you might had a bad day at work or something might have happened, and now you could go and indulge in this act together. But at the end of the day, it could hurt your potential with that other person, and you could lose a better situation because of that. And this is obviously, it's not just men; it's men and women. And like you said, yeah, there's some strong-minded individuals, but at the same time, that other person might still think they have a chance to do, like you said, and it's also good for them to move on at the same time. So it's just two people taking each other down. And so yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that's it. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. Until next time.
Peace.